building, it's generally a bad idea to actually rush outside, because in Japan, power lines are generally not buried, they're overhead, so you run the risk of having live power cables land on your head if you run out into the street. But it really is it's continuing to shake right now, and it really is quite scary.
Describe to us what it feels like.
Well, I mean, it's if you've not been through one, it's hard to explain. It's a bit like it feels a bit like being on a tube train or something like that. It's just sort of a gentle rocking. But I mean, the first sign that there's an earthquake is usually that things on the shelves are rattling, or water in your glass will be shaking, and then shortly after that you'll really feel it. It's like it's a swaying motion, and Japanese buildings are generally designed to be quite flexible, because if they're brittle, they're more likely to fall over in the event of an earthquake. So I'm on the 8th floor right now, and that exaggerates the effect of the earthquake, but in a way it's reassuring, because it means that the building has got the flexibility to deal with it.
Despite those buildings, at least 5 dead, we're now being told, from the Japanese government, as they clearly get their reports coming in. The problem, of course, with the aftershocks is that they may further damage buildings that are perhaps fractured in some way.
Yes, exactly. And what happened, what I'm sure would have happened this time, and happened with the last Bay earthquake, the new buildings generally survive fine, but it's the older, more brittle buildings that get the worst damage. And just looking at the news now, it looks like the previous aftershock was, I think it was 5.5 on the Japanese scale, which is for something, I think, on Richter scale. But it's they're continuing here, and people are obviously quite nervous about it.
Yeah, I think the U.S. Geological Service measured the aftershocks at 7.1 recently, 6.8 another 22 miles northeast of Tokyo. So clearly there's a lot of activity still going on.
Yes, yeah, very much so.
So what's Japanese television doing on the coverage? It does appear it's the northeast of the country that really has borne the brunt of this.
Well, the pictures coming in have been quite dramatic. I've been quite surprised at how quickly they've come in, and how they've managed to get pictures to Tokyo, to the headquarters of most of the national networks, from some of these areas that have been cut off from communications. There's rolling coverage. It's a mixture of live pictures and pre-recorded pictures of the damage itself, and also, of course, announcements on what to do, where to go, how to deal with the aftershocks, and get in touch with friends and relatives, things like that.
And does normal life still go on here as well, or do people stop and get glued to their television screens?
People are used to them, but this one is bigger than most. I mean, I think, like I said before, it's now rush hour in Japan, or would be normally, because everyone's seen pictures of the trains in Tokyo. Normally they're rammed full of millions of people, and of course all of those train lines are now going to be shut for at least a few hours.
Yeah.
So people are outside on the streets. They're waiting for buses. They're waiting for taxis. They're just going to a cafe and getting a coffee while they wait for updates. They do have.
I'm just going to interrupt you. We're just getting more from the authorities are warning of an imminent strong quake on the northeastern Honshu island. Is that very populated?
Not as much as the areas around Tokyo and Osaka, for instance. Japan has some very dense population centres, but the northern part of Japan is not that populated. That said, there are some major cities. Aomori is a big one. Sendai is another one.
Okay. I'm just going to see if we've got Professor Salmon still on the line with us, who was Professor of Geophysics. No, we've lost him for the moment. We'll try and get back to him just to talk about this warning coming through. Because, Tom, one of the things we were talking about earlier was the difficulty of trying to assess where these aftershocks are going to hit, but clearly I've got something pretty specific coming through here.
Yeah, more information coming through all the time. Also an update, 5 deaths are now being reported by the AP news agency. So that is a figure that almost inevitably will start to rise. If we could go back perhaps to the oil refinery fire at the Chiba refinery, this is a real huge amount of fire that has just been created by a seep in this fire of all sorts of different fuels that are processed at this refinery. There's almost 400 people who work at this oil refinery, a big site about 30 miles or so away from Tokyo. They produce 220,000 barrels of oil every day, and also have a mix of other energies on site as well.
Just a bit more coming through, Tom. Many feared buried in rubble after a hotel collapses in Sendai. A lot of the pictures we've been bringing of certainly the big wave, this tsunami wave coming in, is Sendai. So we're now getting reports that a hotel has collapsed there. Many feared buried in the rubble. This was well, I was going to say wall of water, Tom, but as you indicated, it's the debris that comes with it and the impact then, especially that speed, as it hits these buildings.
Yeah, it just picks up everything in its path. As you can see, this is a massive debris that has been picked up just rushing through this. It looks like farmland, this particular bit of the coast that we're looking at now, but just rushing through, often taking buildings in its path, all sorts of vehicles and wood and everything that